Hi, welcome to our at-home activity luminescence inquiry lab for our Firefly module. I'm going to go over all of the directions that are written in the document linked below with some visual demonstrations. So if you're really good at following written directions, you may not need this video and you're welcome to just continue on to the lab. However, if you are a visual learner like me, you might find some of the demonstration images and video clips helpful, as well as me just kind of going over all of it in person. So let's get started. Okay, so first the facilitator is going to put each set of glow-in-the-dark items in closed paper bags for a few hours before starting the inquiry lab. This is to let them get ready to be glowy or not glowy. Then everybody's going to watch What's Behind the Firefly Glow video for background information about a firefly's bioluminescence. That's linked in the lab document. Next, you'll cut out the vocabulary cards and then review the vocabulary terms with your learners. Those flashcards are available on the last page of the document. Next, before getting started with the lab, you'll tell learners that they're going to match the glow-in-the-dark objects with the type of luminescence that describes them. That's the whole purpose of the lab. You'll then have learners create a chart in their nature journal to record their findings. We've linked an image in the document that shows you how to do that, but basically at the top of the chart will be each of the 3 types of luminescence you're testing for, and then leave space underneath for learner notes. When you're ready to do the lab, you'll take one bag of materials, basically your demo bag, and your learners into the dark space in your home that's big enough for you to do this activity in. Once you're in the space, the facilitator will reach into the bag and remove each object to pass around to your learners. As each object gets passed around, you'll ask some questions that make your learners think about that object. You can start with something simple like, hey, does this object glow in the dark? Spoiler alert, it's not supposed to glow in the dark if it's been in the bag for a while. No objects in the bag will glow. While you're in the room, you can have your learners take guesses about which object is which. Some of them are pretty easily identifiable, like a glow stick, and maybe they'll identify the highlighter. Of course, the other glow-in-the-dark object is kind of a wild card. It could be stickers, glow-in-the-dark stars, or just something that you found at the Dollar Tree, like I did. I found this little squishy Dollar Tree guy in the checkout. Don't spend too much time doing this in the dark, of course. Then you'll leave the dark space and make sure all your guesses were correct. At this point, it doesn't really matter if the demonstration objects are out of the bag. And in fact, you're going to show learners all of the demonstration supplies in a space like kind of in the middle of the table. It includes the bag, the objects in the bag, the flashlights, the flashcards, and your nature journals. Next, you'll work together to develop a testing process to determine how and why each object glows in the dark. If you're feeling overwhelmed by this as a facilitator, you can always default to our inspiration resources, much more traditional directions. That lab is linked in the PDF below. Now, we think a good way to develop a testing process is to put all the supplies in the center of the table, including the luminescence flashcards, then brainstorm a list of ways to test for each type of luminescence. The facilitator or an older learner can take notes during the process, and the entire group can come to consensus on how to proceed with testing. Some testing methods might be obvious, like breaking a glow stick, and others might be more involved. Try to set some specific testing parameters for each item. Need some ideas on how to do this? Read the text on the sample test tables that I included in the document. As your learners go through the testing process, they can record their test procedures in their nature journal. If writing is a barrier to completing the activity, an adult or an older learner can be the note taker. Samples for what this looks like are at the end of the procedure document linked below. Your learners might have different testing ideas than I did for my document, and that's totally okay. Again, the point of this lab is not to follow a strict set of directions, but to be curious. As your learners go through the set of tests that they've created for each object, you're going to want to note the type of luminescence that's displayed by each. Learners can take notes and do reflections on what they noticed and what they wondered in the chart they made for their nature journal. Again, samples of all of this is at the end of the document we linked below. If you have any questions about this lab, feel free to drop me an email at kelly@thefieldtripacademy.com.